My name is Lara Herscovitch. She and her. I started writing songs when I was 10. I found recently a poem, a very short kid poem that I wrote when I was 7. So I just think that poetry and songs have always been how I've like made sense of the world and how I've always made sense of how I feel about what's going on in my world. So it goes back a ways. I didn't realize that I'm a musician with a capital M until I was about 30. So I was writing songs through, I don't know what grade I'm in when I'm 10, but whatever that is, like through junior high, high school, playing songs for friends. But it just didn't occur to me that it was a thing that one could do in the world. So I went to college, studied political science, was pre-law for some reason, and again, didn't really realize that music was a profession to go into. So I ended up getting a graduate degree in policy social work instead, and got a job doing international development, and I was traveling around the world, oftentimes spending a lot of time alone, like not safe to go walk around in the world. And I started bringing a guitar with me, and that was when all of a sudden I realized that this is who I am, and that it wasn't until that point that I even did my first open mic night. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what were some challenges that you faced starting out?
One of the challenges that a lot of us struggle with, that I certainly struggled with, was just believing in myself. So when I think about songwriting, I think a lot about the technical side of it, but also the spiritual, emotional side of it. And the technical challenges, there's a well-worn roadmap in terms of how to figure it out. Like you pick up your instrument and you practice and you learn from those who have come before, and there's techniques on how to use language, and volume upon volume upon volume written about how to hone the craft. And then on the like spiritual emotional side, it's everybody's journey to learn to believe in oneself. So I think I had challenges like any human being doing this would, I think, on both of those sides. But the biggest one for me probably was just believing that there was room at the table for me too, and that I needed to listen deeply to my own heart and my own soul in order to create space at that table for myself. Because the table doesn't walk up to us and pull a chair out for us. Like, we have to walk up to the table and know that it's the table or the instrument that we want to sit at, and just show up. So it took it took me a minute to realize that that's who I am. So it's hard for me to separate out gender dynamics in music and as a professional musician from gender dynamics in general. So I had, as I was saying, what is referred to as a day job, even though it was also a calling. It was work that's specifically focused on improving the world in all the different ways the world needs improving. And I was a female existing in that world, all while on a parallel track I was working as a musician. And so, I got a lot of the same stuff that women get in this world, which is like, you should smile more, and you should wear makeup, and all kinds of commentary on what I should wear, not wear. I've had people say, I should wear dresses more. But that started, to be perfectly candid, that started from my own grandmothers when I was 3 and 4 and 5, when I wanted to play with a soccer ball. They would buy me a doll instead of a soccer ball and that. So, like, gender issues are so deeply embedded in our culture and every culture around the world, nearly. And so, yeah, it shows up in music too. I don't know any male singer-songwriters who have been told to smile more. I love house concerts. They're lovely, like, intimate venues where you can really bond and build community when they have potluck, and it's a lovely, lovely thing. And there's a very, very teeny tiny percentage of house concert hosts whose intentions are not exactly that. I don't I don't know if my opportunities have been changed. That's not the part of it that I feel. I have been on the receiving end of some kind of dismissiveness with certain sound men who don't think that I'm as technically aware. So I will see the same sound man treat a man very, very differently in a sound check than he might treat me. But luckily that's fewer and farther between. And I'm thrilled. Rocky's done now. Okay.
Aww.
All right.
Bye, Rocky.
We had a good moment. I think those moments are sort of fewer and farther between, and I am thrilled with this next wave of evolution, of like spiritual, emotional, community evolution, where we're reimagining what it's like to be in a healthy community in all kinds of different ways. So I love the new wave of feminism. I'm delighted that the new wave of feminism is more about intersectionality and about really co-creating this next world, like together with women of color and transgender women, and in ways that are different from the feminist movements of before. So I feel hopeful about it, and yes, it still shows up. I wrote a whole song called I Will Mind Mine that's sort of reflecting back on all of those kinds of comments that I've been on the receiving end of. And at the end of the day, honestly, and even in the song, I know that behavior is about the person who's behaving that way and not about me in particular. And it's taken me some time, as it does for all of us, to know that. And now that I know that, I can see it for what it is and not have it land in a personal way or in a way that feels as hurtful. I can just see it for what it is and say, oh, there it is, and just walk away and surround myself with people who are good for me and good to me.
How has your songwriting changed over time?
So my early songwriting, I didn't have the patience that I have now. I'm working on my 7th album, and I know now to invite a new level of polish and to not feel like the second it's done, hooray! But now the second it's done, I know that the first draft is done. And I'm challenging myself to level up in everything that I'm doing, including in my writing. And so I think I'm better at clarifying within any given song what I'm trying to write about and getting to the heart of it with more technical skill and probably with more emotional and spiritual skill too, just having lived and healed and grown and all that. The topics are really similar. Some are looking at our culture, some are looking at sociology, some are personal. Some are about love, some are about family, some are about just belonging and connection. So the topics are similar over the years. I heard Twyla Tharp has this great book on creativity. I don't remember what it's called. It's sitting I'm about halfway through it. And she said something really interesting. I'm going to jump topic into just that from her perspective, each one of us who is a creator, and I believe that to be a happy, healthy human is to be creative in any way, whether that's songwriting or pottery or painting or poetry or cooking or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so I think she was talking about creativity in a really broad way as well. And even she's a dancer, so for her dance, she was saying that each of us has one default perspective. Either we are really in touch with like the color of the grass that's growing on the lawn and the bugs that are living in the grass and the way the wind is making the grass move, like the micro focus and the detail of, you could see it in painters. Mm-hmm. And others of us are very easily defaulting to sort of 10,000 feet of like, okay, what's happening? Because immediately when I think of that, I think, Roundup and suburban lawns and toxic chemicals. So I'm someone who defaults more to that kind of 10,000 feet and what does it all mean and how does it tie together? And therefore I need to challenge myself to look at the blade of grass and figure out what kind of bugs are living down there. And so it's not that one is better than another, it's more about self-awareness. And when you know what you default to and you know what topics you might default to, then you can intentionally steer the ship towards something that is not quite your comfort zone. Otherwise, you're sort of writing the same thing over and over and over. At least for me, I would have been. So that's been helpful over time too, to learn my strengths, learn my weaknesses, learn my perspective, learn myself, and then expand the vision to other things that if I wasn't doing it intentionally just would never happen.